About a week ago, I made a review about the original Armored Core. Go check that one out if you haven't already, as a lot of basics about Armored Core are covered in that one. This review will assume that you watched my review about the first game or already have experience with the Armored Core series to get the most out of it. The format that I have in mind when it comes to approaching the sequels will be to compare them with other games in the series that I have played. Things like, what differs in gameplay mechanics, what have they added or removed in the garage, do they still approach story in the same manner? Naturally, since I'm playing this series mostly in order of release date, the more games I play and review, the more I will have to compare it to. Just like the first review, I'll be breaking the review down into multiple different parts: story, gameplay, and garage. Before we get to your closing thoughts where I give the game a score, however, I will also take the opportunity to talk about the expansions of the game, something I regret not doing with Armored Core 1. Let's see what FromSoftware, with a few more years of experience making mecha games, managed to create for the launch of the PlayStation 2. Story. Armored Core 2 takes place 70 years after the first game's expansion, Master of Arena. You are still a Raven, still a mercenary, still taking contracts from the highest bidder. But this time we are on our favorite red planet, Mars. Unfortunately for Tim Curry, space has been corrupted by capitalism and new megacorporations are in play. One of the more significant corporations, CO Matrix, acquires plans that date back before the Great Destruction, which helps them terraform Mars into an inhabitable planet. And other corporations like the LCC and Emerald follow them, employing ravens through the Nerve's Concord. As in the first game, you have to pick and choose between what corporation you do missions for first, but it doesn't have nearly as big of an impact as it did in the first game, in my opinion. The mail screen comes back from the first game to provide extra story and lore. The ranking screen is now replaced by an arena screen. I will be going more in depth about the arena mode later, but rest assured, if you enjoyed reading the bios of other AC pilots and climbing the ranking screen in the first game, it's all here. You'll just have a more direct approach to climb the rankings this time around. Again, more about the arena mode just a bit later. The game now features voice acting for the briefings in every mission. While not the best, Emerald's voice actor making me unsure if I want to laugh or cry,
to supply a necessary commodity, power. Destroy the facility and all Rectena devices.
I think that in this case, I'd rather have the voice acting than just text. And while I wouldn't say that they're the main focus of storytelling, they have added more cutscenes, which are all well made and gives you more insight to the ACs as well as the world around you. Did I mention the voice acting?
I see.
Gameplay. As with the first Armored Core game, we had to take a test to become a Raven. As mentioned in the first game, there wouldn't be proper analog support until Nexus, so the control scheme is mostly the same. I say mostly because there's two more buttons to press: L3, which activates your AC's currently equipped extension, and R3, which activates your overboost. That sends your mech's engines into overdrive. It consumes a lot of energy until you either stop it manually or smack your face into something solid. But the movement speed gain is absolutely worth it, especially if you play a gun tank where movement speed is usually the biggest problem. You can now also perform a move called Limiter Release by pressing both L2, R2 and R3 at the same time. For a short period, you gain infinite energy, but when that time is up, your energy meter will be completely depleted and will not regenerate for some time. And then, when it finally kicks back in, you have to slowly regain the full meter before you can use it, just like if you screw up and go past the red line. This move can be incredibly useful when you find yourself with a lot of energy ammo that needs to be dumped very quickly, be it in one of the game's later boss fights, which I won't spoil here, or to get that clutch against your opponent in the arena. Last thing to mention, mechanics wise, is the heat system. ACs can become overheated, certain weapons being better at dealing heat damage than others. When this happens to an AC, they get put into output down, which shreds armor over time at an alarming rate. You don't want this to happen to you. Moving on, Nerve's Concord here will act as your Raven's Nest, providing all of the functionality from the first game. But as mentioned earlier, the ranking screen has now been replaced with Arena. Here you can view where all of the other AC pilots rank, but now to rise in rank you have to challenge them in a fight. You pick the pilot above you, choose a map to fight on, my two favorites being Murakuma Dome and the Highway, and the rules are very simple. Last mech standing wins. My favorite part about the arena is that you can go full ham. You don't need to worry about AC repairs or ammo expenses, like in the mission mode. This isn't about thinking economically, this is about using the best tool for the job to blow the other pilot into smithereens. I had a great time in this mode, with my gun tank being my main AC. My main loadout will be an energy machine gun in my hand, a laser sword that shot energy waves to counteract the 4 stab tank treads get, and 2 f***ing chain guns on my back, occasionally swapping it out for shouldered laser cannons. My other AC was a pretty standard biped, carrying a machine gun and a laser sword, sometimes a pulse rifle, and then mainly the Kurosawa laser rifle once I found it later in the mission. I don't like kneeling down to use my shoulder weapons, so I would try to opt for missiles or extra ammo in this case. For both the builds, I picked an anti-missile system as extension for the arena, allowing me to take less damage from those goddamn missile spammers. I didn't find much use for extensions otherwise, but that's probably because of my weapons and playstyle. I'll go into more detail about them in the garage, but that should give you an idea of what an extension is. Every pilot beaten gives you credits, and when you reach certain ranks, corporations sponsor you with free AC parts. The only limit to the arena is the amount of pilots that you can pound into the dirt. So with a good AC build and enough skill, you can earn yourself a pretty penny before you even get anywhere in mission mode. Making money much less of an issue in the early game, especially when you consider that, again, there are no expenses for fighting in the arena. As for the game's mission mode, it works just like AC1. Select the mission, get a briefing, complete the mission, get paid, watch part of your paycheck get drained by your own expenses, and then you repeat. Missions are still as varied as they were in AC1. Mission structure is something that FromSoftware really nailed from the start, and they did a great job of keeping up in this game. The only mission I had a problem with this time was the submarine mission. Hydra is usually my homie, but not when I'm in a gigantic multi-ton, very sinkable war machine. Armored Core 2 also improves on the one gripe I had with AC1. The game now runs at a full 60 FPS, and I don't remember it dropping a single time. This massively improves on the game feel, as your AC feels that much more responsive to pilot because of it. Perhaps the overboost mechanic is a bit unbalanced. With the big generator slapped on, it's easy to keep it up and there's no punishment for using it. But I'm hardly the person to nitpick balancing, as long as it doesn't hurt the gameplay experience. And AI is smart enough to use overboost to keep the pressure up as well, so it goes both ways. It's genuinely hard for me to find a fault in the gameplay here, making me incredibly curious to what the future will hold. Garage. First of all, the garage music in both games have been absolute bangers. For games where you spend a lot of your time tinkering with your AC, you'll be hearing these tracks for hours, and I still haven't grown tired of it. All of the part categories from the first game make a return, as well as adding 3 new ones to the mix. We have radiators, remember the overheating mechanic mentioned earlier. These will assist your mech in cooling back down. Inside, utilities mounted inside your armor core. These range from deployable decoys and other means to mess with enemy lock-on systems, to bombs and mines. And extension, which typically mount up next to your shoulder weapons. The more commonly used ones being anti-missile systems for extra defense, or missile extensions which fire more missiles together with your other missile packs. I didn't use the inside utilities that much if I'm going to be completely honest. I think I equipped it once just to check it out. It adds another weapon to cycle through your weapon list when you're in game, which made it feel a little bit clunkier. And to be honest, it was hard for me to find a situation where I thought, oh, I should equip this utility. I hope that future games make better use of these. Extensions I thought were much better implemented. I'm not much of a missile guy, so I never really got around to using the missile extensions that much. But if you like blasting a target apart with an absolute hailstorm of missiles, this is the category to keep an eye on. I'm mostly stuck with the anti-missile systems for extra defense, especially in arena mode where I knew I might fight against ACs wielding them. Radiator is the only new required slot, flagging your equipment as incomplete if you don't go with one. It's mostly passive, affecting the passive cooling in your AC, and also the emergency cooling should you overheat. It's a bit of a boring category in my opinion. You select the one that best fits your AC, so if you're playing a shotgun tank, you pick the heaviest radiator on the block and you call it a day. And that's pretty much it. You don't want to be stuck facing an enemy AC using a weapon with high ammo heat without at least a decent radiator though, as this will put you into output down over and over until you feel like you're facing a try-hard bleed build. and before you know it, you're overheated to a 4000 degrees Kelvin and you explode. Overall, these new categories don't really add a lot, but I'm still happy that they are there. It is very likely that my playstyle just didn't find room for them, and so they were left behind. As for what's new in each category, well, not a whole lot. There are new weapon types, a new stat called ammo heat, which, again, determines how fast you can toast your enemy. Heads now come with the hacking skill. This is only used like, twice in the game, and that's to obtain some hidden parts. Nothing to really worry about. There's a shiny new leg option in AC2, hovercraft. These ACs seems to be tanks with higher mobility, but you still have to kneel to use shoulder-mounted weapons. I only use them a little bit because they can prevent you from falling into water in the few stages where it would, instantly kill you. Also, we can now completely customize our HUD, including what shows up on it as well as what color scheme we like. And judging by my AC, we all know I'm a fan of pretty colors. Overall, nothing mind-blowing here, but nothing inherently bad either. It will be very familiar to you if you played Armored Core 1, and I think that's overall a good thing. Why fix what isn't broken? Now let's move on, and talk a little bit about the expansion. Another Age. It's a mission pack consisting of 150 missions, and what I've been told, is the longest Armored Core game in the franchise. There is a lot to enjoy here, but it feels like a little bit of an experiment, with stuff just being flung at the wall to see what sticks. When I say it consists of 150 missions, I mean it. There is no mail screen and there's no arena. Instead, we go back to Earth to complete missions in different sectors, and you can kind of hop between any sector you want as long as it's unlocked, each sector having its own difficulty rating. There is also no branching story path, and you'll mostly find yourself just doing a mission for whatever corporation that decides to hire you. The only story being a quick briefing, and off you go. It's really just more corporation wars, and now we're back on Earth. It's not bad at all, it's more Armored Core 2, and that's a good thing. Perhaps there's some balance changes going on here too. I think overboosting actually heats your mech up this time around, but I barely noticed it. You can import your save file from the original Armored Core 2, which I would heavily recommend. It does make the first sectors a bit of a face roll, but let's be honest, you don't want to face all of these missions without having some leeway in your own finances. It adds more banging tunes to the overall already awesome soundtrack, which is probably the biggest plus here in my opinion. I'm actually very surprised that more people haven't talked about the soundtrack of Armored Core in general, but perhaps with the franchise always being somewhat niche and also having laid dormant for the past decade, might have influenced this. That's really all I had to say about Another Age. It's good, and it's more Armored Core 2, if you like Armored Core 2. One very important thing to note, play the NTSC version. You cannot transfer your save file between AC2 and Another Age in the PAL version. Closing thoughts. I genuinely wonder why more people don't recommend Armored Core 2. When I was first diving into this game series, I did a bit of research to learn what games people favor in this franchise, and what the best starting points would be. Most mention AC1, 3, and 4, with Armored Core 2 not really present much in the discussion, but I think it should be. It's an overall improvement on the first game, and that's what you would hope a generational leap should do for a game series. I really liked Armored Core 1, and this game does everything AC1 does but better. Again, I've not played Project Phantasma or Master of Arena at the time of writing this review, so perhaps it's unfair for me to say. But with the game running at full 60 frames per second, this fast-paced mecha shooter looks and feels amazing to play, especially considering it's over 20 years old at this point. Another Age gives you a ton of missions to do, and they're fun to play through. If you finish Armored Core 2 and you enjoy it, definitely give Another Age a try as well. But if I'm going to be completely honest, Another Age is not a must-play expansion pack in my book. So if Armored Core 2 is just the first game but improved in every single way, along with the smooth 60 frames per second, which was my only complaint of AC1, where does this land in a rating? A solid 9 out of 10. It's a strong launch title for PlayStation 2, and I go so far as to say it's one of my favorite titles for a platform. The few things holding it down is the presentation of the story, mainly the voice actors. Story isn't the most important thing in a game to me, so I'm willing to look past this, but I have to remain fair. And the garage just didn't innovate enough to make it a bit more interesting, in my eyes. Another Age fails to elevate the game above this. It's mostly the same game with extra AC parts to acquire, and the lack of mail to receive and no arena mode causes it to lack heavily in the story department. ACs you encounter in the story you just blow up, and that's that. You can't learn anything about them. It's completely held up by its gameplay and music, and for this reason I'll give it a solid 8 out of 10. I don't think it's a bad score at all, because it just goes to show how well the franchise can still stand on its feet by gameplay mechanics alone. I've been your host BlueberryPoot, and thank you so much for watching. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, and leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. I had some help with the script this time around thanks to Raptorsalad. Go check out his Twitch and YouTube. You can find me live here on YouTube every Monday, Tuesday, even Thursday at 7 PM Central European Time. It just so happens that I'm streaming a lot of Armored Core right now, so if you're interested, come check me out. For more gaming content at Armored Core, subscribe. See you guys in the future. Bye!